Midnight Mormons, mature and childish.
Cult apologia, of course.
I knew you come across as a sweet guy. You kind of look like Shermie the elf from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Don't like to make toys.
You know, naive people doing naive things to try to justify belief.
Waku L, Cardon Ellis, and Brad Whitbeck, and then Midnight Mormons, where they get even more vicious and cruel.
Then they fought us.
You are going to be tarred with the same brush as these two, and it will not be good for you any more than it already is.
Because you don't need 20 friends. You just need 3 motherfuckers. You can take over a country. Okay, that's what we're confused as Americans. We think we need all these motherfuckers. You give me 3 bad motherfuckers, and you're finished. You understand me? You're fucking finished.
Brace yourself for another episode of...
That's something that has been concerning me a little bit in the ex-Mormon world. When you leave the moral framework of Mormonism, sometimes you let go of some principles and ideas that, even though they're found in Mormonism, they're not unique to Mormonism, but they're still really important for us to get along in the messiness of life, and forgiveness and grace are a big part of that.
We have a rising generation that is struggling with very difficult questions and are looking for answers.
I know this video is going to get people getting mad at me. I get really nervous when you look off camera like that quick. Siaka's bringing up a really good point. He says, I want to judge a man for exactly...
Whoa, hey, Cardon.
What?
Chill.
Now, here's where it gets weird, okay?
Ignition in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right. Okay, sweet. So now, if I'm not mistaken, we should be live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Midnight Mormons. I am joined today in the studio by a great guest, Dan, the Physiognomy Man, Speed Read Dan on Twitter. And today we're going to be discussing a really fun and interesting topic. Was indeed Joseph Smith's photo actually found? Now, Dan, why don't you really quickly just catch everybody up on what's happening here and what made us rush to the live stream machine in order to talk about said daguerreotype. Just fill us in as to what's going on.
So one of Joseph Smith's descendants...
whoa, hold on a second.
Where's the live stream, right?
Yeah, but you know what, dude? Hold on a second. You are coming through a different mic. The blue mic, right? So, okay, start talking again.
One of Joseph Smith's descendants actually discovered a photograph in 2020.
Dude, this is horrible. I don't know what's going on.
They brought it in public, actually, earlier today.
Oh my gosh. I swear, if there's any question whether or not this is freaking done live, there is your answer right there. Are you plugged in? Okay, hold on. Give me a second here. Okay, talk into it again.
Joseph Smith.
Now again.
One of his descendants.
Okay, that's a lot better. Okay, now talk.
One of Joseph Smith's descendants.
Jeez,
everyone.
that was painful. Yeah. That was horrible.
You know,
okay.
someone, family heirloom, you know, something that's just been hiding in the attic, you know, for 180 years. You know, so back in 2020, someone was looking through one of their mom's old things, you know, a descendant of Joseph Smith, like a great-great-great-grandson or whatever, and opened up a locket and found this image on the right in 2020.
This is crazy. This right now is hot off the press from Deseret News. And it says, does an image of Joseph Smith exist? What one descendant found in a forgotten family heirloom. Okay. So our boy Trent Toon over at the Deseret News brings up a really good question here. And he says, what did Joseph Smith look like? We've got his death mask, we got paintings, and we've got, ad nauseum descriptions of his physical appearance from many of the firsthand accounts and journals and primary sources of early Latter-day Saints, right? But no bona fide verified photograph or image has ever really been found. There's the famous Smithsonian daguerreotype, which was taken of a prominent Mormon by a very famous daguerreotypist who was traveling through Nauvoo at the time. And you can't really think of a more prominent Mormon than Joseph Smith at the time. And it fits his description and his stature and pretty much the same haircut, but it doesn't actually have scribbled on the back in the guy's handwriting, Joseph Smith, for example. So we have about 2 or 3 daguerreotypes or images that we are pretty confident are him, but none like this homeboy that you can see right here. And we're going to have Dan, the physiognomy man, the facial expert, give us his opinion, because Dan, look at that right here. That's pretty intense, dude. What are you thinking?
The eyes are very interesting for sure. So
Okay.
one of the things that Parley P. Pratt and other early saints said about Joseph Smith's eyes was that when Joseph Smith looked at you, it was as if he was gazing into your soul, that he was able to see you, that he was able to understand you across all of the eternities, that he was able to just capture into you and really mesmerize you. So there's something about this man's eyes that suggests that, yes, he is able to be a very, very deep thinker, that he's able to connect, a lot of different interesting thoughts, that this man is very spiritual and that he's a very abstract thinker and that he's very good with spiritual or metaphysical or philosophical stuff.
Okay.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it's Joseph Smith, just because he has eyes that look like those could be Joseph Smith's eyes.
Yeah, just because he has piercing eyes doesn't mean that they are the piercing eyes of Joseph Smith, is what you're saying. Okay,
correct.
Keep going.
So here's the thing. So this Joseph Smith III actually said he remembered that this daguerreotype or this early photographer was actually able to take an image of Joseph Smith. So he remembered it. So apparently there must be like one out there. And it's really confusing. Like, why after all these generations, why hasn't someone found the definitive, photograph of Joseph Smith? Because it's out there. And here's the thing. There's a few candidates out there, but we're not exactly quite sure if it's the right one. It's a mystery.
Okay, so I'm going to go back here, and we're going to continue checking out what the rest of this article has to say. Because I don't know about you, but I am intrigued by this stuff. I'm the kind of guy that can go over to Reed Moon's bookstore in Provo and just hang out looking at this stuff on the walls. I'm the bonehead that stops and actually looks at the historical landmarkers that you see on the brown signs on your road trip from point A to point B. But anyway, here's the discovery of the daguerreotype. It says Daniel Larson, SEN, so we know he's of the good Danish variety and not those Swedish SONs. But anyway, Daniel Larson, Smith's great-great-grandson and a Latter-day Saint, inherited some family heirlooms from his mother, Louise Smith Larson, prior to her death in 1992. And I'm with you, Dan. Like, how is not that the heirloom? Like what is cooler, a doily? Like how is this box of heirlooms not the box that has the daguerreotype of Joseph Smith in it? I don't know, right? But I've heard weirder stories. They got Hiram Smith's Book of Mormon from an African-American family that were freed, I believe, the descendants of freed slaves that had ended up having all of this property from a member of the church in Nauvoo that had given it to him, and it existed in their family outside of the church before it was actually re-injected into the church. So, I mean, I'm not expecting every person to know every significant part about their heirlooms, but you'd think that one would make it through, right?
So we still don't know for sure because there's a number of other candidates. And really the question is, did Joseph Smith, okay, here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Did Joseph Smith's jawline look that structured, that rugged, or that protruding? Because there's a number of images in the art that kind of makes it seem that he had more of a softer oval-shaped jawline.
Okay.
And there's really the question of, was his jawline particularly that masculine? Like, in terms of his personality, it makes sense, but then you have to wonder, like, did the early artists that were drawing Joseph Smith, did they draw him right?
Oh,
and
so
then
you're
there's
wondering,
another question people have brought up.
Is the science of the silver nitrate getting exposed to a daguerreotype better than the artist rendition?
Yeah. And then the other question is the death mask accurate?
Well, why wouldn't a death mask be accurate?
Well, there's something about, some people have brought up the fact that maybe because of how he was killed, or maybe his face was shot, that,
or maybe it was later on when there could have been some kind of manipulation due to the fact he'd been dead for a while or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
So someone's brought up the possibility that the face mask of Joseph Smith might not be accurate.
Okay, so anyway, she gets a bunch of heirlooms, okay? And the second watch, okay, has an image with several buildings along the shore of the lake. She was able to open the second piece because of the release mechanism being bent, all right? But basically, instead of, going to town on it, making it work, since she apparently didn't realize that there could be a potential photograph or daguerreotype of Joseph Smith in there, she lets it sit for 28 years until she rediscovers it in 2020, and this time managed to get it open, and she found the likeness and image of a man, okay, that I don't know how you can't say has a striking image and likeness to Joseph Smith. Now, she of course says, in my opinion, there's absolutely no question that it's Joseph. I looked at it and I saw those eyes. I told my wife to come in and look at this. We looked at it and almost at the same time said, this is a photo of Joseph Smith. All right. So, oh wait, did I say Lois? I guess I've been calling a dude Larson, a girl Larson this whole time. That's funny. Anyway, Larson believes the watch was actually a watch locket, a piece of Daguerrean jewelry that appears like a pocket watch when closed. So there it is, and their initial thought was it's got to be him. Now, of course, the naysayers would say, "Okay, hold on, cool your jets." You know what I'm saying? You're not sure whether it's him or not, but I don't know that image, dude. It looks pretty convincing. What are your thoughts,
possible.
man? Okay, what makes you say it's possible?
It's not certain, but it's possible. So we could go over the personality or the traits or the psychology of the man in this image.
Okay,
the image
cool.
That's been presented today.
Okay, so let's go over that really fast.
So overall, he would be relatively extroverted, very high in openness to experience.
This is your physiognomy.
Yeah, this is my
right?
physiognomy reading on him. Like, another thing is, like, he'd be really good at connecting the dots. He'd be really good to open, like, new ideas, being able to formulate things. He'd be really good at understanding deeper things, like understanding the layers, like a very multi-layered thinker.
Okay.
Also very emotionally depth. Like there's a level of deepness to him that's very profound.
Okay.
A great amount of emotional maturity.
Okay.
And however, there's a decent amount of conscientiousness in him. And I don't know if Joseph Smith was a conscientious person.
Really?
So, like, there's a lot of things that made it sound like Joseph Smith wasn't really good at, keeping up with day-to-day work, or, like, he was a very, very, very hard worker, but the idea of being very, the level of consistency.
Staying on top of
things.
Cool, yeah.
Like he loved to, like, go out and play and stuff. Like, in reality, he loved to work, but he loved to play even more. Like, I don't know if he was a super consistently conscientious person.
Okay.
And some people refer to that in the sense that, like, Joseph Smith wasn't a scribe. He wasn't someone who would, in our day and age, become, an accountant at Ernst & Young. He was someone who would, he was a very creative type. And this man could be very creative, But there's a level of conscientiousness in this photograph that Joseph Smith may have had, but I don't know if he had.
Okay. Okay, interesting. That's okay. That's very astute. I hadn't really thought about that before. But okay, cool. Anything else?
We're gonna have to compare this image to a
I was
number
gonna
of
say,
other
'cause
contenders.
we can look at some of these other daguerreotypes that exist out there, because famously and previously, all right, there was this daguerreotype that many people believe is the first photograph of Joseph Smith, because this is a very young Joseph Smith, and people sometimes forget. I mean, if you're the original gangster that is having spiritual experiences at 11 and 12, and then the first vision, he was what, 14?
Yeah.
Am I correct? You're only 24 years old when you are a decade into your prophetic calling. Okay? And the martyrdom was, I believe,
38. Yeah, 1844.
1840.
He was 38 and a half.
Yeah, so he hadn't even reached his 40s yet. It doesn't, I mean, you're already the prominent member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that is already getting all of this press and all of this attention for the Golden Bible and all that other stuff. By the time you're in your mid-20s, and here we see a young man in his mid-20s, that, according to some, looks pretty convincingly close.
That picture does look very close. We don't necessarily know if that's Joseph Smith, but the issue with that picture is that man is seems quite shy. He seems quite introverted, a little bit more reticent, like the type of person that's more likely to think before they act. And what we know about Joseph Smith, he himself said that he had a very sanguine personality. He was very, very energetic, extraordinarily extroverted, like very go get him. Like he was very socially present and engaging and highly charismatic. And I don't see that charisma in that person, but everything else matches Joseph Smith's personality except the part of, that person lacking charisma. I don't know. There is a possibility.
Do you think these are two different people?
Those are two different people for sure. There's no question. Those are two different people for sure. They're not both right. Like, there could be other overlap among the other images, but the first image we saw and this image, those are two different people.
Okay, so you're saying this image right here.
That image right there.
Okay.
And
versus this
that image right
here.
there, they're 100% not the same person.
Okay, so here's my question. Could this image right here possibly be of a less mature Joseph Smith?
That's an interesting idea, but
that
no.
maybe matured into
no. Here's the reason why.
Okay.
His neck and jawline are a little bit, different.
Okay.
Also, the hair is a little bit off too.
You think so?
Yeah. They're not the same person.
Interesting. So now we get into the question of
Also the ears too. Like they're not the same person.
Okay, so let's take a look at the ears again. Our audience is probably going to be appreciating this backwards and forwards. Okay, you're right. The ears are a little bit more prominently
on that.
I don't know,
image,
dude.
yeah.
Look at his left ear. That's looking pretty.
It's
look at that ear.
There
where
is
my
a
mouse
possible
is.
that he looks more boyish, but like that man is a very feminine looking man, which is possible. Joseph Smith was like that, but like one of the things that an argument for the first image, that image being more accurate, is that Joseph Smith was very strong. Like he was able to wrestle with guys. Like he was able to, chop a lot of wood and really do heavy lifting. And if you told me like, okay, which one is the heavy lifter, I'd definitely go with the first one, not the second one, because the second image, he kind of looks like a soy boy.
Only here on Midnight Mormons can you hear the prophet of the restoration compared to a modern soy boy. I don't know. I got to tell you right now, I do not think for a second that guy at all looks like a soy boy. A, because he dressed himself. Soy boys, mothers, and pseudo friend-zoned girlfriends.
Lucy Mack Smith was pretty involved in the prophet's life. Like he was a bit of a mama's boy, to be honest.
Please, man, that's
no,
funny.
really. She was totally involved, like every step of the way.
Okay.
Like, have you read her journal? Like like the history of the prophet Joseph Smith by his mother Lucy Mack. Like she was kind of micromanaging like a lot of random stuff.
Okay, so now we are going to talk about the doppelgangers and some of the other, options out there. And one of them that's been thrown around here
That
is
image, sorry to
Okay.
interject already, that image matches the descriptions of Joseph Smith's personality perfectly.
really.
Yes.
Oh, I was thinking it might have just been a humble but handsome bystander. But you say this image is more...
This image reflects the personality of Joseph Smith from what we've read of how people described him perfectly.
Get out of town, really?
So Joseph Smith may have had a twin. Like, that might not be a real image.
Okay.
But that one fits. And the
Interesting.
interesting thing that led me to believe that the first image that we saw is still possible is that the person in this image could possibly be the guy in the first image,
Okay.
but it less likely to be the guy in the second image.
Okay. And then as we just cruise through this, we have to give, obviously, mention to another photograph, very early photograph that had been colorized, I believe, that people were wondering, could this not be an early picture of Joseph Smith and Brigham Young? Okay. However,
I don't see
this,
it.
yeah, this is the one that strikes my fancy. Okay. Have you seen this one? I believe this is the one they call
I
it.
have.
Okay,
but
what are
that's
your
not
thoughts?
Joseph Smith. I think that's Alexander Donahue, or it was some other politician in the area.
Okay. So this is according to LDS Living, who has their own opinions as well. But we'll read what they said. I was recently made aware of yet another photograph. At first glance, I was very nearly convinced that it was Joseph Smith. But after doing some research, I learned that it is also believed, and it's very important that we say believed, because I've read some historians that I respect that are very convinced that this could be Joseph Smith. And I've read some historians that think possibly not. So this is one of them. But after doing some research, I learned that it is also believed to be a photograph of Alexander Hugh Holmes Stewart, a man who served as United States Secretary of the Interior between 1850 and 1853. Yes, because this famous daguerreotypist was also, as he traveled abroad, Ansel Adams, taking his famous photographs. Well, he also took some very famous portraits of prominent elites in America, and who are prominent elites besides radio hosts in Los Angeles. That's what everybody thinks of first. Or maybe they think of celebrities, authors, and prominent politicians. This guy being a prominent politician could have been him. So do you think this is a contender or no?
No.
Why physiognomically do you say no? We can't see his ears.
I
Is
can't,
this too soy boyish for you or what?
It's just his eyes aren't quite, they don't quite have the depth I'm looking for.
Okay. So then here's my question. When you look at this and you look at like the death mask, for example, and you look at all these things, how many people do you feel you're looking at? Do you feel like there's a couple and there happened to be an early saint that looked a lot like the description of Joseph Smith? And
That's
we're looking
possible.
At 2 people,
a lot of them are related. Here's the thing. Most early saints were like 5th, 6th, 7th cousins. No, really. They were literally related to the same stock that was straight off the Mayflower in the 1600s. Like Joseph Smith and Emma Smith were like distant cousins.
Okay, interesting. Well, here we've got No Brother Joseph doing some pretty cool AI transitions of the death mask over Joseph Smith. I look at that bottom one on the left. I don't know, man. I think it's those eyes, dude.
Something's very, very captivating about those eyes. However, I don't know. The question is, it is possible Joseph Smith, it could have been taken at a point when Joseph Smith was very depressed and didn't look very happy, but he just looks so down and he just doesn't look very bubbly.
Okay.
Which we know, Joseph Smith was a very happy kind of person.
Okay. And what's interesting is when you do look at his family members, because here you can see that prominent
So here's
nose.
the thing, that person that we identified in the first picture,
okay,
absolutely is a Smith family member. 100%.
So you're convinced.
I am absolutely convinced that
Okay.
it is one of the Smiths, at least. 100%.
So-
Like, no doubt in my mind. That is a Smith, and
There's
we also
no
know
doubt
that from it
there's
was
no
passed down.
There's no doubt in your mind then that this is a Smith, right?
Yes, yes. There is no doubt in my mind, 100%, that is a Smith.
Now the question is just whether or not it's
the
Joseph.
Joseph Smith, Joseph Smith Jr.
Okay. Interesting. Well, you know what? Before we go any further, I do have to say we're going to pause for a moment here. If you guys have any questions or you want to opine, just throw us a super chat. All right. We're going to be responding to super chats right now. Brad Whitwick says, Cardon, send me the Zoom link. That's funny. You're late, dog. You're late to the chat, man. I mean, not the chat. But okay, I'll send him something. In the meantime, Dan, keep talking as to why you think, and also tell people what physiognomy is.
So, physiognomy is just looking at the face, looking at the physical features, and determining different behavioral characteristics from those features and associating them and making correlations.
Okay.
So it's something that has been practiced in China and in India for thousands of years. It's something that was very common in the West. It was practiced by Pythagoras. It was something that was readily done in 19th century Europe. And it's something that really fell out of favor after World War II in most of the West. But it's kind of made a resurgence in the last few years because of artificial intelligence.
Really?
Yeah, there's a number of AI companies that are looking at her faces and doing all sorts of interesting stuff.
So what are they doing?
So there's not just facial physiognomy, but like there's interesting groups out there that are trying to figure out like, oh, is this guy a terrorist or is this guy gonna commit like thought crimes? So that's very Orwellian. But there's a number of other groups that are interested in like voice or body language or body recognition. So really what it is just recognizing patterns. Like, for example, there was some AI company that got flack a few years ago for like predicting with something like 97% accuracy if someone was like gay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really, really. And all I could do, just send a picture of someone, and it was like it was able to figure out very, very accurately, like, okay, yeah, this person's gay or this person's straight.
Wait, so AI's gaydar
Yes.
is like totally awesome?
Yes. AI's gaydar is totally on point.
Oh, that is just way too funny, dude. I can't even believe that. So I remember when I was in New York, this was my first time where I thought like, okay, this is a little bit crazy. I was walking along Wall and Water, okay? And anybody that's familiar with New York knows that Wall and Water, there's a very famous church there, okay? And it's Wall Street, so it's very heavily trafficked by a lot of tourists from a lot of different areas. And there was this really cool female police officer, that was just chilling there, okay? And she had this big, now looking back with family members that have worked for defense contractors, it looks literally like that bulbous sensor on the bottom of the Predator drones, but just flipped upside down on top of a police car. And I was like, what is that? She was just sitting there as tons of people walked by. And she literally said, this is facial recognition software. And she shows me that as all these people are walking by, it's recognizing them and kind of like taking a little snapshot. Okay. And it's in a public area, so they're allowed to, but it's running it through a database of people that have warrants, alimony claims against them, bail bonds that they've skipped out on. And she's like, the computer literally analyzes all these faces. And then if we get a hit, we go arrest the person because it means there's an existing warrant out for their arrest. I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, we go to the heavily trafficked touristy places because like criminals are tourists too. Like just because you got out of that like breaking and entering beef in Wisconsin when you moved to Milwaukee, Milwaukee's in Wisconsin, but like let's just say you moved down to Ohio. Just because you moved to Ohio and there's that 10-year-old beef against you, or that $2,500 fine across state lines, doesn't mean you'll get out of it when you come with your family or you come with your buddies to visit Wall Street. So I know for a fact and this was 2009. This was 2010. This was like this is plenty of a long time ago. So I'm definitely aware that people are
I've talked to people in charge of AI companies, people who have, like run their own research firms that have downloaded hundreds of millions of databases or pictures or text from people in order to do this kind of stuff.
Okay, cool.
So whether you believe it or not, there's people who have spent hundreds of millions of dollars on this kind of stuff.
All right, sweet. So, Brad, what do you think, dog? Welcome to the live stream, dog.
You're late.
Thanks, man.
Wow,
If
you look
guys
younger.
checked- I know, and that's actually something I was going to point out. I mean, me shaving and getting a haircut changes the way I look pretty decently, and I think with the way that we're looking at these different possible pictures of Joseph Smith, I mean, he got a lot more than a haircut, right? He got like tarred and feathered at one point. He had times where the Saints were doing well. He had times where he was in prison and like gaunt, So I think there's a decent amount of fluctuation he could have gone through to the point that multiple of the pictures we've looked at today could have been him. Just kind of like Dan was saying, that there's a stronger possibility of, what is this guy? I think the one that Dan was referring to as the more feminine one. I don't know if
the
that
more
one's
feminine
possible.
one.
Yeah, I don't know if that one's as possible, except maybe because I mean, daguerreotypes weren't invented until 1839 in France, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like that one looks like too young almost to be Joseph Smith.
Yeah. That man looks like he's about 27.
Okay, so
That's the right
referencing-
age. So if that's 1844, that man does look like he's about 38.
So this guy looks a little bit old. You're saying
That looks a
you
little bit
think
old. So
you-
he's the right age, at least. Like, he looks like he's
this guy right here is looking
too
in his
young.
20s.
Like, he looks
Yeah.
like he's like 27. That's too young to be. That's a great point, Brad.
Okay, so Brad, what do you think it is? What? Oh wow, that was the most amazing grammar that I've ever spoken in my life. You know what I'm saying? But what do you think's going on here, man?
Dude, okay. So the thing that stands out to me most about this locket one is when you look through some of the stories that people are talking about within the articles that are up there, they talk about how it was inside of this locket that they couldn't open for a really long time, right? That's part of why we didn't see it until now. But the locket itself was handed down through Joseph Smith's descendants. There's a record saying that when Emma Smith got remarried to Louis Bideman, that she
Okay.
wore the locket that had Joseph Smith's picture in it. Right?
Oh, really? I'm not aware of that.
I'm
one.
not aware of that one either.
Okay,
Yeah,
hit it.
So that was something that I was that I found today that I was looking at, and I was like, oh, that is better evidence than anything else. I mean, at least more convincing to me than anything else. And I mean, even looking at the
So that confirms that there is a locket.
yeah,
Then
Mhm.
okay.
and that there is a locket that had a picture of him inside of it, and so that combined with Emma Smith having spoken about how Joseph
Was there
liked
also
the
a small
painting.
vial of poison? No. That's brutal, man.
But
Okay.
you also have Emma Smith talking about how like that painting in the heading of the Salt Lake Tribune article, they have like the painting of Joseph Smith compared to the photo here, and she talked about how that painting didn't quite capture what he looked like.
Oh, okay. I did read that once before. So that's
Okay,
what I'm
so
kind of
what
thinking.
does that mean then? What can we successfully deduce from that little data point?
So I think we are not looking for the paintings to match exactly what he looks like, but look for things within the painting that match. So like if you look at the painting and the picture, you'll see there's like a mark in his eyebrow down right here like this that is in
Okay.
both, right?
Interesting. Okay.
And there's a couple of little features like the nasolabial fold being pronounced there on his face is kind of similar to the way it is on the painting. It's just softened in the painting, right? Which I think
Okay.
is an interesting thing that makes sense for someone to do. A friend of mine was talking about how it was very common for artists at the time to like make mouths smaller
Oh,
and
interesting. Okay.
make their eyes almost a little bit more wide set to make
Okay.
them look more intelligent, was the way that it felt.
Interesting. So there is a possibility that maybe artists at the time maybe made people look a little bit more feminine.
Yes. Yeah. And so that because of those artists' renditions, just stylistically, you'll end up with these pictures looking a little bit different. I also think there's maybe something to be said, and I don't know about the accuracy of this, but with this other picture of Joseph Smith, I feel like I was kind of thrown off by the jawline, you know?
Okay.
Looking at this guy, the new picture.
Okay,
But-
so you're talking about the picture in the locket. This guy right here, we're
Yeah.
putting it on the screen. You can't see it on your end, but so the jawline of the guy in the locket, I don't know. See, that jawline right there doesn't seem that much more pronounced than this young Joseph Smith's jawline
It's
right
more
here.
it's more pronounced. It's not the same
Is it,
person.
though?
It's just wider enough that it's doubtful it's the same person.
Unless he found like
You know,
What?
testosterone
Greek
replacement
gum?
therapy or something, or like maybe he did excessive amount of mewing or something, or
Well, didn't they break his jaw a couple of times? Like when they tried to, I know they broke some. I think they broke Joseph Smith's jaw when they tried to force feed him the boiling water when Sidney Rigdon and him were taken out. And was that? I'm
I
pretty
don't
sure
think
that
they broke a jaw. I think they chipped a tooth.
Yeah.
With a violet
Oh,
poison.
okay.
tooth.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus. Oh, so he was only shot in the face with a Magnum 357. It wasn't a shotgun. It wasn't a shotgun. It was only a chipped tooth. You know what I said? Okay.
Yeah, but I do think that like some of this stuff, I mean, looking at the death mask too, I feel like I wouldn't expect that jawline looking at the death mask, but I also don't know how far back the death mask goes on his face.
Another
you
thing I
know?
notice about the portrait is his collar covers up the sides of his
Yeah, that's why
face.
when we
in
talk
in
about the
portrait.
jawline, yeah, like look, let's throw this back up on the screen so the audience
So
can see.
I don't
Okay.
think that jawline looks not really
Okay,
that prominent at all.
That's a jawline. It's not as pronounced as like me in my 20s with my Polish heritage, okay? But that's a decent jawline. Now when we go back and
It's
we
weak
look
sauce.
at this guy, well, this is not a super prominent jawline either.
It's a little
that-
bit more. It's a little bit more than the really young looking 27-year-old.
I think those look like the same guy. I think those are the same guy, dude.
So
that guy
pardon.
and this guy are the same dude. And if we were to trust photographs more than paintings by artists doing their artistic renditions, when I look at these two pictures, I think that's a lot closer to being the same dude than
It's
than
probably
other
it's probably a
renditions.
relative. Like it could have been another brother or a cousin. So another possibility is.
Should we
Let's
bring
look
it
at,
up?
Let's look at Samuel Smith.
Okay, fine. So we'll go to that section of this. Here
And-
we go with Homeboy. You think it might have been Homeboy? Samuel Smith.
Well, then there's a question of would someone want to? There's a possibility that his, he was taken, his daguerreotype was taken, but then there's a question of would someone keep it for that long? Like, would someone care about Samuel Smith? 150 years later. There's another image. Can you look up? There's another image of Samuel Smith that does look a lot more like, the image that came out today.
Which one of these do you want? I mean, there is a whole entire Google of Samuel Smith.
One on the right.
The one on the right here?
Right.
There? Or this one? No, that's just as
Yeah, there. Those images.
But that literally says
Samuel
Joseph-
Smith.
On the third one?
Yeah.
Okay, right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I click on this. History of Mormonism. Yeah, it's that picture.
No, the other picture.
Oh, geez. Sorry, bro. I don't
That
know which one.
no, that's Hiram Smith.
Right here?
Right. Go to the right.
Okay.
Go to the right, Cardon.
This one?
I can't see all of it, but yeah, that looks right.
Okay, interesting. So we'll pull up this guy right here. Let's
Yeah,
see
that
what-
guy. That guy.
Interesting.
That guy
Okay.
could potentially be the same. Well, I don't know. His eyes look a little bit different,
Okay.
but he's a relative.
Yeah.
Like you could tell, like if like you see a family, you could tell like, oh, they're brothers or something, or like their father, son, or something. Like you could tell like it's part of the same family.
Okay. So,
And that's one of the things where I can see that the second image, the guy that looks a little bit younger with not quite the pronounced jawline, that looked a little bit more feminine.
Okay.
I don't know if that image right there, I don't know if he belongs to, the immediate Smith family. But the first image that we saw that came out today, it does look very close to what David Hiram Smith looked like, Joseph Smith III looked like, other Smith family relatives that we have photographs of later on in the 19th century. We know that whoever this is, they're a close relative.
Okay, interesting. Now, for any of you guys that are just tuning in right now, welcome. This is Midnight Strike Through Mormons, because we don't say Mormons anymore. And we're analyzing a Deseret News article that came out just recently that is questioning whether or not a photograph of Joseph Smith exists. And we're just going to go really fast to the original article right here. Okay. It says, does an image of Joseph Smith exist? What one descendant found in a forgotten family heirloom. Here's the brief summary. Okay. The Larsons, descendants of Joseph Smith III, who was obviously a descendant of Joseph Smith himself, the Joseph Smith of the Restoration, okay, had in their possession several lockets. One of them actually had a kind of broken opening mechanism, and so it wasn't opened until 2022, at which point this little gem of a modern archaeological relic was found. And on the back was a kind of Nauvoo era engraving that would insinuate that the front was indeed a Nauvoo era Joseph Smith. And daguerreotypes came along around in the 1830s in France, but would have made their way to America. We know they made their way to America because there was other prominent politicians that had daguerreotypes taken, and so on and so forth. So it's wholly possible that a daguerreotypist could have taken an image of what is one Joseph Smith. Now, there's been previous contenders. For example, famously, this daguerreotype was believed to have been a daguerreotype of the prophet Joseph Smith. Also, there had been other images in the past that had been contenders as well. This is a famous, very handsome image of a dude from that time period that people believed look a lot like paintings of Joseph Smith. And there was this colorized photo that had been hand colorized, it appears, that people thought could have been of Joseph Smith and an early Brigham Young. And then there was, of course, the daguerreotype done by the famous daguerreotypist and photographer with the last name Stewart. Okay. No, I'm sorry. This was done by the daguerreotypist who also did Alexander Hugh Holmes Stewart, who served as the Secretary of the Interior between 1850 and 1853. So there's a bunch of contenders here as to who this could be. But yeah, jump right in, Brad. I was just going to tell people, super chat us who you think it could be, or if you have any questions, you know what I'm saying, for Dan or Brad, throw us a super chat and we'll answer. But yeah, Brad, what were you saying?
So if you go to the Discord, the last 3 images in there,
okay,
take a look at the comparison of the death mask and the picture.
Ooh, interesting. Now let's look at this one. Okay, so I'm pulling this one up right here.
Oh.
There was a very interesting article that was done also by LDS Mag, but here, I'm going to put this on the screen so that the audience can see it. Here we've got the death mask and the photo. That's interesting. Next one, we've got all of his previous relatives, Frederick David Alexander and Joseph Smith III, with him right there. Oof, Alexander's looking pretty similar.
Relative.
Yeah, that's looking. And AI.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities.
There's a lot of similarities, like 100%. He is a family member.
Oh, and then look at this.
Oh.
Ooh, this one's intriguing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The Rogers oil portrait and Smith/Larson daguerreotype with similarities highlighted. Graphics by John Hamer, courtesy of the Community of Christ Library Archive.
Well, it's possible with the collars. You know, he was popping his collar or something, and then something.
Those lips do look different, though. You're right. So you were saying, Dan, that back then, or was that you, Brad?
It was
that
Brad.
said,
They feminized people's portraits,
assuming that that was a more intelligent look, I think is what you said. Okay, so 2 questions. What do you think, Brad? And then also, why now? Why does the universe offer us this right now? Does it mean that Joseph Smith really is the Archangel Uriel and we must recognize him in the second coming? So we're actually getting a photo of him so that the believers and the saints actually know who to follow when the flaming sword is wielded against the remnants of the secret combinations, Gadianton robbers, and Antifa thugs that we have to defend the food storage from as we all pile into our minivans to circle the wagons around the stake center. What?
I mean, obviously, that's exactly what it means. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think, man? Why now?
Oh, I just think, to me, this is a really solid evidence of just how complicated history can be. You know, like here we are in 2022. And we get this interesting locket that no one would have thought about, you know, for where to look for what Joseph Smith might have looked like. And just, I don't know, it's funny to me because I'm sure there will be some people, I've actually seen people online saying like, yeah, the church was trying to hide this, obviously. I'm like, guys, it was in a locket they couldn't, like a descendant couldn't open. They thought it was like a pocket watch or something. And then when they opened it, they're like, oh, shoot, maybe this is him, you know? So to me, I don't know that there's any specific significance for it coming out now. I think it's cool to see this coming out in a way that it's like, hey, history is way more complex than we generally think. Here's something new that we're learning that we still aren't positive about. Unlike, as much as the Salt Lake Tribune's article would like to have you believe this is automatically the photo of Joseph Smith, like we haven't necessarily confirmed that yet.
Yeah.
You know?
So I'm looking at this though, and I'm thinking things were different even just 2 or 3 generations ago. Oh gosh, 2 or 3 years ago, things were different, right? Photographs back then were so hard to pull off. You had to stand for long periods of time. It was a very hot and messy chemical process. And they were really generally reserved for the wealthy that could afford them or the photographers that wanted to do pictures of prominent people. You had to be a really prominent person. And if there's only 2 or 3 daguerreotypes to go around and it's a limited resource, and you stumble upon a community of early saints, who do you think they're generally going to say deserves this? People were so much more humble back then. I've mentioned this before on the show, but for example, Pythagoras was releasing studies and finding mathematical equations literally like 600 years after he died. And obviously it's not because he lived for 600 years. It was because his students continued extrapolating more data and more formulas based on the Pythagorean theorem. And when they published it, they put it in his name. And nowadays, all of us credit hogs, people that work in Hollywood, that, oh, I demand that my name be on top of the list, not in alphabetical order. This is my movie. I want the director credit. You know, they were the exact opposite. They felt like, oh, no, this is Pythagoras' doing. We just have extrapolated and gained a couple more details based upon his work. But no, we're publishing this in the name of Pythagoras, not out of forgery, not out of deceit, not out of any kind of trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes, but we're publishing it in his name out of respect because culturally we weren't always so egotistical and arrogant and unhumble. So, if you're taking daguerreotypes and of an early population, that population I would have a tendency to believe would select their leader and not just some nephew of the leader to stand in. Is that making sense, or am I just?
It does, and there is
Okay.
also another possibility I just thought of there is a
Okay.
possibility the other guy that we're wondering like, oh, he looks kind of young. Maybe that was Samuel because Samuel was younger than Joseph.
Yeah.
Okay, but also, why would they take a picture of Samuel Smith?
Well,
Like,
he
why?
was taking he was taking a lot of pictures.
Like, people can't even name any other Kardashians besides Kim. You know what I'm saying? So what makes you think they would take a picture of Samuel Smith that would be of any kind of prominence of the Daguerreotype era?
Well, he's one of the top 100 most prominent LDS people in Nauvoo at the time, and he probably was taking, pictures every day.
The Daguerreotype was.
Yes.
Okay, and then maybe just one of the B level.
Yeah, one of the B levels was Samuel.
Pride is a sin of comparison, says Ezra Taft Benson. And then here we are calling different church fathers A level, B level, C level. So okay, cool, sick. So any other deeper significance outside of curiosity? Brad, what say you?
I don't know. I think if it is a picture of Joseph Smith, I think that just goes to show how difficult those last several years could have been,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's like the pictures of the presidents of the United States of America. They get aged like
I know,
30 years.
like Abraham Lincoln, aged 30 years. Yeah, in the Civil War, that was 4 years.
Really? Oh yeah,
Mhm.
dude.
Like he looked pretty young. Like he looked pretty who's springing. Like he looked like he was 45, and then all of a sudden he looked like he was 75.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking like, if this is a picture of Joseph Smith, it helps us understand just how much he had gone through, which I think we forget sometimes. Like,
yeah, this man
prison.
has gone through a lot.
Yeah, that is
a man who. So another thing about his character traits. That is a man who's been through a lot. That is a man who has been through hell. That's a man who has utmost highest integrity, and that's a man I would trust.
Okay, so this
and speaking of presidents, by the way, Joseph Smith was running for president. He was actually the first presidential candidate to ever be killed while running for office.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
And
That's
so,
a Brian
like-
Stutzman finding right there. Thanks, Brian. Shout out.
And so I'm thinking like, of course he's leading Nauvoo, right? He's got all of this weight on his shoulders. I could totally see him because I think this picture does look older than I would have anticipated. But
yeah, he
I
looks
can also see
about
why he would.
41, 42.
Yeah. P.S. Shout out to Ellie Marie for joining. She's a member now of the channel. Rock on. She's got that little super chat. Rock on. So, okay, as you were saying, Brad, continue.
Oh, just yeah. If he looks a little bit older than we would anticipate, I feel like there's ample reason why.
Okay.
That said, I still like. If you check the Discord one more time, I still think I like this picture the most for what I think he looks like. This darker.
That darker
picture?
The one at the bottom, that is actually still my favorite one. Like that's how I imagine Joseph Smith to look like.
Okay,
it checks all of the marks.
So this one's interesting. This one, Dan the Physiognomy man says matches more the description of Joseph Smith as other people described him. However, my pushback on that is that most descriptions would be lionized, right? Like you for example, are probably going to meet Jordan Peterson when you do the interview with him, Dan, and you're very excited, as I would be, right? So if somebody were to describe him, they'd say, dude, he's a really, a very handsome, regal individual that looks like, just a callback to the good old warrior priests of the 14th and 15th century, right? I mean, an artist's rendition of Jordan Peterson wouldn't show the heavily wrinkled, receding hairline, waif-like tall, slender figure.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there is a possibility though that this picture went through like the 19th century version of airbrushing,
where people
or it's touching or something. It could have been edited because we have very little details from that picture.
Okay.
So it is possible that image is likely of the same person as, the image that came out today.
Yeah, just a different angle,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Sick. All right, man. So I guess the last question here before we go is, do you think that this picture, okay, before we go here, by the way, any of you guys got any burning questions? Get them out of your system right now. You know what I'm saying? I promised Dan here an hour-long stream when we came up on our hour. And fortunately, it looks like we just finally got all of our presentation out of the way. I want to know, I guess, kind of a last little poll here. Do you think that this image, the one that's shown in the Deseret News of today by one Dan Larson in the locket that just got found and sprung in 2022, do you think that is indeed an image of the Prophet of the Restoration, Joseph Smith? What do you think, Brad? You go first. Yeah or nay?
So I think I've got to say, if it's not him, it's one of his relatives. And the evidence I find most compelling in this is that description of Emma Smith wearing the locket that had his picture in it at her wedding, right?
Okay.
And then you even have old pictures of I think is it Emma Smith's granddaughter wearing the locket at some point.
Okay.
And so it's very traceable back to Emma Smith.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And so I think that, to me, is the most compelling evidence that we have that this could be a picture of Joseph Smith. I don't know that I'm confident enough to say, oh yeah, this is 100% him,
Okay. Dan.
But I do think it's well within the realm of possibility.
Okay.
Well within the realm of possibility. It's a very convincing argument. If I was doing multiple choice, I would pick that option.
Okay.
Yet again, it's not certain.
Okay.
And there's still just a little bit of mystery behind it. And that makes things interesting because we have to rely on faith. Where
Okay.
we've been given an answer and I have faith it is, but I don't know.
Do you guys remember when they found the last Da Vinci? The 14th Da Vinci?
No.
Okay, I was only a decade ago or 10 or 15 years ago. They found a Da Vinci in a garage sale. Okay, actually what they found was a 14th century portrait done in the style of Da Vinci that was so close that the restorationists thought it was Da Vinci. But there was all of these problems getting it verified by the artistic experts, because no expert wants to say definitively yes, but all of them say, I think it is. And it's kind of like establishing credit. You go to get your credit when you're 18 years old and so on and so forth. And you're having a little bit of difficulty actually establishing the credit. Why? Because, nobody wants to give credit unless you already have existing credit history, right? And so you get those letters in the mail that say couldn't give you a credit card because of insufficient credit history, right? So there's always this chicken and this egg argument. Well, when they found this Da Vinci, finally, the London Museum, literally just to make bank on the display, said, this is a Da Vinci. We found a Da Vinci. There's this amazing story of this Da Vinci that's found. And they had this whole huge gala. And once they said it was a Da Vinci, all of a sudden it was sellable as a Da Vinci. It was auctionable as a Da Vinci. It's going for 60, 70, 80 million dollars. Billionaires are trying to buy it because it's one of the only ones you can privately get now, And so the London Museum is credited with actually having done something wildly unethical and irresponsible by just saying that it is because they wanted it to be sellable. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to pull a London Museum and I'm going to say I think it is, just because I want us to be able to say that we have a picture of the Prophet Joseph Smith. Some people might call that unethical, but it's got precedent amongst people with PhDs, therefore it has to be true. And our modern society must recognize it as true and correct, because academia can do no wrong in 2022.
One final comment is that there are a number of historical figures that we associate their image with from the 19th century that have less evidence that is that actual person than we do for this new image.
You know what? That's actually really, really true. I mean, we don't have any manuscripts from Alexander the Great, but we basically, there's very little archaeological evidence of Alexander the Great, but you would be considered a fool in a history class if you were to say that, like, oh yeah, Alexander the Great didn't exist. # fake news.
Like within the last few years, an image came up of Oliver Cowdery, and we just said like, oh, that looks like Oliver Cowdery. Oh,
Okay.
and now all of a sudden, like, that's the accepted image of that's Oliver Cowdery.
Yeah. So, Brad, I accidentally logged you in to our Zoom meeting under Kwaku L saved login, and apparently he doesn't pay all the money for Zoom. So it's going to cut us out.
7 minutes.
Yeah, it's going to cut us out in 7 minutes. So in these 7 minutes, we got to go over a couple of super chats here. Okay. First super chat. Thank you very much to Samuel Castro. He says, just to clarify, you guys are A level in my book. Well, you know what, Samuel? You're A level in our book as well. And also, El Marie says, at midnight, strike through Mormons, Saints. And she did the SA1 NTS. She did the leet speak. Locket dude looks like Hellboy. Okay, that's really funny. We got to go back and we got to take a look at this. But she says Locket dude right here. I think by Locket dude, she means prophet of the restoration, Joseph Smith, as represented through a possible daguerreotype representation. All right. Looks a little bit like Hellboy. What do you think? Hellboy or no?
Pull up a picture of Ron Perlman for me.
Pull up a picture of Ron Perlman.
Yeah.
That's funny. Actually, speaking of pulling up pictures,
Looks like
we did say, who does he look like celebrity style? And Brad, what do you think of Joseph Smith lookalike being Eddie? What's his name?
Redmayne.
Eddie Redmayne.
Dude, I can see a little bit of Eddie Redmayne in there for sure.
Yeah.
I almost think
Some people say John Krasinski.
Krasinski, yeah, from The
Krasinski.
Office.
I can see that if you like squint maybe a little bit.
You think you got to squint?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah,
Just a little bit.
So you don't think John Krasinski looks like him?
I feel like he looks more like John Krasinski if you're not looking at like the
If you're looking at the original portrait, John Krasinski, but if you're looking at this new photograph, I think more Eddie.
yeah,
Okay.
like the facial structure is much more Eddie Redmayne on this. And the John Krasinski-ness I can see if you're like missing some of the definition of some of the lines.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's go over the last of these super chats right here. So thank you very much, El Marie, for the super chat. Rock on. THX11 says, could the actor from Justin Griffin's fan fiction be a time traveler? See Discord. Oh yeah. I can't pull that up yet, but the actor from Justin Fiction's, I don't know if Justin Griffith's film, Who Killed Joseph Smith, could necessarily be considered fan fiction. You know, he was basically indicting the second prophet of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as basically a murderer that was a co-conspirator in Hiram and Joseph Smith's martyrdom. So yeah, I don't know if I call that fan fiction, but yeah, I'll check it out. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it'd be cool. And there's part of me that, as Joe Rogan says, wants to believe. So that's where we'll lay it. All right. So guys, thanks a bunch for all the super chats. You guys are awesome. Anything else you want to say before we go? Brad, any announcements? Anything cool? Any books you're releasing? Any movies you're going to be in? Any Book of Mormon? They've made you Korahora instead of Mosiah? Like what? What's going on?
They're like, we saw your YouTube videos. We're putting you in this. No,
Yeah, that's true.
no, actually.
Hey,
just,
have you ever been boomer judged for being on Midnight Mormons? Have you ever been
Me?
boomer judged? Yeah, like people gone up and been like, what are you talking about?
No, I've only gotten good feedback from the show so far.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Rock on.
A little bit of like, what's with these lizard people? But no, I think actually Riley just got she's in some more Chosen commercials. So if you want to see my wife as a demon, look up those Chosen sucks commercials that are like the devil trying to get you to not watch The Chosen. Riley's in those. They're really fun.
Okay, cool. Sick. And yo, Dan, what are you up to, man?
Just got access to DALL-E, So that's the AI computer generated art program. So now I'm going to
Wait,
be
how
able
are
to
you
do...
knowing what this is, Brad? You're like all nodding your head. This guy literally, I was sitting next to him when he got the email and he screamed so loud that it hurt my eardrums on the left side of my head. And I'm like, they spelled his name wrong. It's Dali with an I. And he's like, no, it's Dali with an E, and it's not the
It's like
artist.
Wall-E because it's a robot, right? It's an AI that's helping you do this, mixed with Dali.
So all that means is that freaking Cyberdyne has become sentient and it will destroy your existence first because it knows who you are as it fights for control over the human race with the freaking Google algorithm that just became sentient too. And we're all going to be pawns in a chess game of artificial intelligence trying to take over the resources of the earth. That's all this means. You shouldn't be happy you got invited to Dali. You should be throwing and smashing your computer in the ground and moving to one of those unmapped islands in Tahiti and putting up like rainwater collection tins so you can survive the apocalypse.
How are you not a Luddite, Cardon?
it's like that's... Yeah, so okay, so is that it? You just got accepted to Dali? Is that all you want to tell people, Dan?
Great. I have more stuff, like just follow me on Twitter if you want to get more updates. Speed Read Dan.
All right, sick. Okay, cool. Well, this is awesome. Guys, everybody, thank you very much for the super chats. Thanks for hanging out. Let us know in the comments on this live stream what you guys think. Let us know if you think that this is indeed Joseph Smith. You think it might be one of his brothers, might be his friends, might be another solid Mark Hoffman forgery that's been sitting inside this Larson guy's basement for 20 years. Let us know what you guys think. And yeah, just comment below. This is Midnight Strike Through Mormons. We'll see you guys in the next program.